facts define the nightmare that this woman had to experience at the hands of her husband. This was a 13-year marriage, as I said yesterday, and the way that the district attorney has chosen to handle this, in some ways, it makes you, in some ways, it feels like re-victimization. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm going to put that out there. And I do wish that someone like Scott Reich or Peter Tragos, that they would talk about this case in terms of what is the calculation to drop these charges of domestic violence? What is the calculation for murder charges? Correct? Is that part of the reason why they had to drop the charges that were related to the domestic abuse? Because had he been found guilty, then they lose their case for murder? I don't know these questions. I've been reading and trying to make some sense of it, but I'm not, this isn't my field, and I don't have that training and knowledge. So what are the nuances of having a woman beaten so badly? And I'm going to talk about today exactly what her injuries were. But to have a woman beaten so badly, to have experienced such a nightmare, and then days before the trial, the charges get dropped because she's no longer around to testify. Is this calculated leading up to murder charges? We can only hope. You know, in 2017, there was a global study done on homicide. They looked at all the different continents and homicide of women, domestic violence victims, and whatnot. And it's fairly horrifying that, and I was sad to see that the United States we're not at the top in terms of husbands killing their wives, but we're pretty close. The worst was Asia, which doesn't really come as a surprise. The second was Africa. And a lot of that is the influence of the culture, the Muslim culture, where women they're not in central society. They are identified as property, where even now today in 2024, if the father dies, the assets are not divided equally among children, although that doesn't happen in the United States either, because there are some crazy mothers that leave kids out of the will. But in those types of societies, the money or the assets are passed down to the children who are male. And if all the person has are female children, then the assets are given to like an uncle or a brother or cousin. So these places are still actively misogynistic, and women are still clawing for significance. And in those countries, if a man kills his wife, if his wife goes missing, there's really very little done about it. That it would be rare to see a man stand trial for killing his wife in a primarily Muslim country. But in the United States, unfortunately, sometimes that seems to be the de facto case, even though murder is murder, no matter what, regardless of your gender. You do have these circumstances where if a woman goes missing or is killed, and the man has some kind of financial backing, the family has some kind of societal standing, cops, lawyers are hesitant to act. They're just hesitant to act on it. In fact, you can ask Georgia Cappleman, who tried for 8 years to go after the Adelsons. Well-educated family, plenty of money and resources. And the district attorney, a man, just could not accept bringing this family up on conspiracy to commit murder charges. They got a new DA, things changed, and then Cappleman was unleashed. But still, it's fairly common. I believe in my heart of hearts that's why the police did not act earlier with Barry Morphew. This was a man of standing. Now, we later found out he's not of standing from his own work. In fact, he ran his businesses into the ground, but his wife had inherited a lot of cash, a lot of money. And he gave the illusion to other people that he was successful when in fact he wasn't. And that happens too, that sometimes deadbeat sons inherit a lot of money and then they pretend that they did something to earn it, and they didn't. They just had a crazy mother. So only 1 in 5 homicides in the entire world are committed by an intimate partner. Right now, I say only. I mean, it's still a horrifying number, right? 20%. However, in the United States and to some extent Asia, in the United States, as much as 80% of women's deaths are at the hands of their intimate partner, their husband or their boyfriend. So, if you have 10 women that are killed, 80% of them are killed by the husband or boyfriend. Some of the studies went as low as like 67%, but it's still an incredibly terrifying number, right? It's a terrifying number. And so we do have to be very careful when we're raising our daughters and our sons. We have to be very careful about teaching them what to do with their anger and frustration. We've got to teach our daughters, you're not living in a Disney fairy tale. You're living in real life. And when there is stress in the home, when things are not working out well, how does this person that you're dating, how do they express their anger? Because it's only going to get worse once you get married. Do you feel safe with this person? Has this person ever threatened you? It doesn't matter how lovey-dovey, sweet, and kind they are when all is well. The big teller is what happens when someone pisses them off. So the fact that this increase in women being killed at the hands of their intimate partner, the fact that this is on such a dramatic rise increases the responsibility of parents raising their sons and their daughters. Number one, recognizing anger growing when it's small and having a plan for how to manage the anger in a healthy way. And number two, to the girls, be careful who it is that you are welcoming into your home to be a part of your life. The way that a man treats his mother is often a good indication of whether you're going to be safe or not in that relationship. So Nikki McCain was a 39-year-old mother of 4 living in Anderson, California. She was married to this joker, Tyler Scott McCain, who turned out to be a complete piece of you-know-what. In a lot of ways, he actually makes Barry Morphew look bad, right? Or I'm sorry, look good. By comparison, given the choice between Tyler Scott and Barry Morphew comes out looking like a white knight. That's how crappy Tyler Scott McCain is. There's some suggestion too that, well, not suggestion, Nikki point blank said that he uses meth. And what do we know about meth? Violence, violent anger, outbursts, uncontrolled rage. That's a part of the beautiful world of methamphetamine. So I wanted to be clear about what it was that Nikki Saelee McCain was living with. When she's living with this man, what was it like? Because this girl, she's 100 pounds, barely 5 feet tall, 100 pounds. And Tyler Scott McCain is a big guy, over 6 foot tall, looks to be 220, big guy. And he looks intensely angry. And when you look at photographs of him from early on up to the day of his arrest, something has changed him. The man that this woman married, he was big, but he was healthy looking. He was kind of pudgy in the face, not overweight, but filled out, hydrated, if you will. He looked like a normal, regular guy. The guy that they took the mugshot, though, looked like some kind of Hell's Angels throwback. Very, very hard looking. Not an ounce of hydration in his face, no fat on his face at all, just bone and skin. Intensely fierce eyes. His mugshot looks frightening. And so I wanted to this morning talk about Nikki and what her experience was like. Now, her sisters have been very active in trying to find her and lead this crusade against Tyler McCain. Nikki lived not on the reservation, but a place called Olinda Road. And she's been described as an extremely compassionate person. And so when I hear people describe her as an extremely compassionate person, what comes to my mind is Tyler is probably manipulative. Tyler is probably a manipulative guy who has gone out through his life being the perpetual, never-ending victim. Oh, everyone's mad at me. Everyone's mean to me. I'm just a screw up. And he probably was or is. But a woman who's extremely compassionate very often can fall under the spell of these types of manipulative, aggressive, violent men because they think if someone had loved this man, if someone had cared for this man, he wouldn't be who he is today. I'm going to love him. I'm going to show him kindness, and I'm going to let the real Tyler come forward. Well, I think the real Tyler did come forward. Nikki's described as being very thoughtful. She's incredibly caring. She's devoted to her family, loves her family. She has a lot of friends. She loves her friends. And a lot of people love her. A lot of people love her. And if you run across Nikki on a day where things are not going well, Nikki is the kind of person that seems to know exactly what to say to make you feel better. So that's Nikki. Nikki's going around making everybody else's life brighter, happier, better, not taking from people, not subjugating people, not relegating people to first, second, third place. This is a woman that treated everybody equally and treated them with love. And it was repaid by a narcissistic, violent, useless loser of a son, Tyler Scott McCain. a big fat nobody who's walking around acting like he was something, probably delusional from the meth that he was using. So, what exactly happened to Nikki? Why exactly did the district attorney, Stephanie Bridget, the Honorable Judge Daniel Flynn, what exactly caused them to pull back and drop charges against such a great guy? You see, Tyler had been arrested and was facing 4 felony domestic violence charges. He was arrested in December 2023. His charges included, beating someone, his wife, to the point of terrible injury, false imprisonment, and terroristic threats. So, what exactly happened that this family went into full-blown meltdown? Well, the court records show that the Shasta County Sheriff's Office responded on December the 1st, 2023, to the hospital to take a statement from a confidential victim. That confidential victim was Nikki Saelee McCain. And when the deputy walked into the room, the first thing he noticed was that her face was basically unrecognizable. The facial trauma was so great that the swelling around her face, her forehead, was immense. Both of her eyes were blackened, it just as black as a night. And she was so swollen she could barely see. Finally, the deputy, recovering from the shock of seeing this woman, this tiny, petite, almost childlike woman, beaten horribly, asked, "Who did this to you?" And that is when Nikki said, "My husband did this, Tyler McCain." She said that he started hitting her. It was a period of time she guessed was around 3 hours. So this tiny, small, petite woman was brutalized for 3 hours by a man over 6 feet tall, at least 220. She said that he started hitting her with his open hand, slapping her face, hitting her on top of the head. She guessed maybe 10, 15 times, just hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. Where did this happen? In her sanctuary, in her refuge from the violent, horrible world out there, her own home. This is a woman that was not even safe in her own house. She was living with a monster. And I suspect Suzanne Morphew might have some of these types of stories as well. So the victim said that when Tyler walked into the house, he was in a strange mood. She was just sitting in her bedroom combing her hair. She was brushing her hair when he walked in. Was really nothing unusual about the day. But when Tyler walked in, there was a definite noticeable change to the atmosphere. She said he walked in and then he turned around very directly and locked the back door. She said that he locked the back door and that scared her, and she couldn't put her finger on why it scared her, just that it was so dramatically different than his normal behavior. And then it became clear that he was not making any sense. He was extremely agitated. He was activated, high physical movement, pacing, angry. So he finds her in the bedroom and immediately goes for her. He jumps right on top of her. She's sitting on the bed. She's brushing her hair, getting ready to start her day, and he comes at her. He grabs her, he throws her down, he's on top of her, he's holding her down on the ground, and he begins to hit her. over and over and over. He's screaming harsh words. He's screaming. He's crazy. He's not making any sense at all. He's just beating her out of control over and over and over. This included pulling her hair, slapping her, punching her. And then she said that there would be like a break, right? Like he was thinking or he would get tired. And a few times he came back, he poured water very slowly over her face, I guess trying to drown her. So for 3 hours, this mountain of a man is brutalizing a young woman who weighs less than 100 pounds. She had no hope of protecting herself. He came back and he ended up tying her ankles and her wrists together. Now, remember, she had already been subjected to a long beating. She had already been subjected to having water poured over her face, stopping her from being able to breathe. She had been slapped over and over and over again. So when he took a break and came back, she was shocked when he tied her ankles and her wrists together. He put tape over her mouth. I want you to imagine the horror of having the tape put over her mouth when her eyes, her nose, the soft tissues around that respiration point were swelling. Being unable to get the slightest bit of breath so that you're no longer focusing on the person that's in the room with you. All you can feel is make that small trickle of air coming through those swollen tissues in your nasal cavity. She told the cops, I really believed that I was going to die. She said that he turned her over, straddled her, grabbed her hair, pulled it back so she was almost up off the ground, and then yelled into her ear, I'm going to kill you. She said there were several times he had something in his hand. He was trying to wrap it around her neck, but she was able to keep her chin tucked down and stop him from doing that. 4 feet, 11 inches tall, 90 pounds, 3 hours of brutalization of a 6 foot plus man, 200 plus pounds on methamphetamine, raging at her. Eventually, Tyler became distracted. I'm sure the meth was wearing off. He became distracted, and she was finally able to find a getaway, to find a way to get out. And even then, she got as far as the car. She got into the car, got her hands loose, had the doors locked, got her hands loose. And as she's trying to drive away, this crazy, insane, violent, narcissistic jerk jumped on the hood of the car. Jumped on the hood of the car saying, you're not going to leave, you're not going to leave, you're not going to leave. And to her credit, she said, oh, yes, I am, and took off. I would imagine leaving him in the dirt, which is a little bit of satisfaction, correct? So she gets rid of him. She drives herself to the hospital where she is now in a protected place, and they contact the sheriff's department, who comes and takes this statement. This description of what she experienced came from Nikki Saelee herself. So this district attorney has a direct comment, a direct statement from the victim of what was really attempted murder. Now, you say, okay, well, they had to have done something, like he's still walking around. Yeah, so they did go and pick him up. They did go get him and bring him in for a statement. You want to know what his statement was? This is what the genius, the boy wonder, the favorite son. Here's what his statement is about why his wife looks like a panda bear. Well, you see, my wife got into a fight with another woman. That's a statement. That another woman did this to her. Obviously, the medical community is looking at her, the doctors, the nurses, and they're telling the cops, yeah, I don't think so. It would have had to have been a really big woman or someone used a bat. So I thought that it was important. I thought it was extremely important to add this factual information, the words of Nikki Saelee McCain, to the live that we did yesterday. I thought that she deserves to tell her story. That those of us that are going to follow this case are going to watch this district attorney like a hawk to try and force this asshole, Tyler McCain, whose idiot ass mother is some sort of protected woman on the reservation. This is the man that this woman is protecting. I'm going to ask you, would you protect your son if they brutalized a woman like this? Would you protect your son? I wouldn't. But you know what? There's some really screwed up moms out there. Like there's some really screwed up moms. And if you raise a son like this, he comes to you knowing what he's done. And your choice is to protect him. Don't you think you helped make him that person? For him to go and say, I did this, I need your protection, with confidence that mommy is going to protect him, wouldn't you say that perhaps that particular style of mothering is what got you there? For a mom like Cindy Watts to know that her 2 grandchildren and her daughter-in-law are dead, and you demonize the mother of those children, you paint your son, the perpetrator of murder of 4 innocent lives, you paint to the media, to the greater public out there, you paint your son as some sort of gentle pacifist in the face of the raging narcissist who's dead. You don't think that might have something to do with raising a son who's willing to brutalize a 5-foot woman? Think about it. I'm going to tell you this straight up facts. My son would never come to me. I have no doubt in my mind, my son, that I am absolutely devoted to my kids, absolutely devoted to my children. If my son came to me and said, Mom, I'm sorry, I lost it. I hurt my girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or whatever. Absolutely not would I protect them. My words would be this: I can't believe you did this. I am shocked that you were so overwhelmed that you caused someone's death. Where are they? We have to make this right. And you have to get an attorney. You have to follow the law. I'll be there with you every step, but you will answer for what you've done. That's what I would do. That's how I would do it. So what makes a mom say, "Oh yeah, well, I know Shanann's dead and I know the 3 children are dead, but let me tell you something about Shanann. She was no walk in the park. That girl just irritated me to death. That girl just talked on the computer. She sold stuff. And she was a bad person because she took my son off to Colorado and then we didn't get to see. That girl deserved what she got because my Chris, my little baby boy Chris, he was no trouble. He was such a good guy. What happened to Chris, Cindy? What happened to Chris that he would end up killing his wife and 3 children? Shanann happened to him. He was perfectly normal until Shanann came along. Bullshit, Cindy Watts. And bullshit to you, Tyler McCain. Bullshit to the mommy of Tyler McCain. You helped raise a guy that would brutalize a woman like this. You did that. You raised a guy who did not recognize that divorce is there for a reason, to keep everybody safe. So I wanted, Cindy's own grandchildren were murdered, all 3 of them. Exactly, Kelly. Exactly. The fact that this one, people, they acted so mystified at the public's reaction to Cindy. Cindy and Ron, Jamie, they were all like in shock. Why are we so hated? Why do people hate us so much? Because you sanctioned the murder of a young woman and her 3 babies by telling Chris that he was a victim, by failing to teach this grown-ass man that he's responsible for his own emotions and he's responsible for his own actions. So I wanted this to be about Nikki and her words, her statement, her experience. That this man would walk into his own house, his wife sitting there brushing her hair, getting ready to start the day, lock the door with intent, knowing what he was about to do, then subjecting her to a 3-hour beating. And if it hadn't been for her willpower to get up and move, even though she could barely see out of her eyes because they were so swollen, willing herself to move at the first little sliver of opportunity, not stopping the car in fear that he would die because he was on the top of the car as she's driving, having the resolve and the good sense to run, and if he falls off, okay, so be it. And then getting to the hospital where she is able to give her statement to a sheriff's deputy. She goes missing, and the district attorney drops the charges. The charges should have been attempted murder. I think the charges should have been attempted murder back in December. Not now. Back in December when this happened. You have to question this district attorney from the get-go. What you think that what this woman experienced, you think that this was domestic violence? It kind of minimizes it, doesn't it? When I tell you, when I read to you her statement, when I give you her direct experience, like I just did, you're horrified. If you could imagine a stranger doing exactly what Tyler did, imagine that this woman is sitting on her bed in the morning brushing her hair, and a stranger comes into the house, locks the door, throws her to the ground, slaps her, punches her, ties something around her neck, ties her ankles and hands together, puts tape over her mouth so she cannot breathe. If somebody said that a stranger did that, would you feel like that was domestic violence? Or would you say, oh no, not assault, that is attempted murder. He tried to kill her. It is despicable what this district attorney has done. It is despicable. We have one of these district attorneys in Houston, right up the road. We have one of these district attorneys right up the road who cannot keep anyone behind bars, especially if they're a person of color. If they're a person of color, it doesn't matter if they kill a police officer, she lets them out. Many of them are getting released with no cash. They're just walking on public recognizance. I don't know why these district attorneys have pulled back and stopped holding people. We've got to get the criminals, the violent people off the street. We've got to do it. So at this point, there is no question Tyler Scott McCain, at the very least, at a minimum, he should be arrested today, right now, today, for attempted murder based on what happened in December. Why is he walking around free? And I guarantee you, he's at his mommy's house. He's at his mommy's house on the reservation being protected. There's really nothing worse in the world than a weak man. You know the kinds that sits around and takes money from their geriatric mom, has their geriatric mother's credit card. You know the kind. The Chris Watts of the world. All right. So Nikki has a story to tell in her own words. She has a story to tell. This wasn't a simple domestic violence. That minimizes what this woman experienced. And I, for one, think her story should be told and retold over and over and over again until someone out in Redding, California hears us. If I lived out there, I would be at this district attorney's front door every single day, just screaming this name, Nikki Saelee McCain, over and over and over and over and over. She can tell her story. It is not hearsay to give your statement directly to the sheriff's department. That is not hearsay. The doctors that attended her that day is not hearsay. It is direct evidence. And never forget Tyler Scott McCain's idiot statement. Oh, yeah. Nikki got in a fight with another woman. The other woman is the one that did this. I'm disgusted by this district attorney. Disgusted. All right. You guys, he probably, sure, I would agree he's on meth. And I think that Nikki being described as an overly, extremely compassionate woman, I think she knew that he was crazy. I think she was well aware that he was violent and that he was fine. This is my guess. He was just fine as long as he wasn't on meth. And then he'd get on meth, and then he was a monster. It's too bad that her instincts for survival did not kick in earlier. It's too bad that she was not less compassionate. You know what I mean? Look, people in protected or trusted positions, like moms, for example, kids, even adult children, have this belief that a mom would love you, right? We're kind of programmed to believe your mom loves you. But the reality is that's not true. There are moms that don't love you. There are moms that minimize you. There are moms that even sometimes hit and brutalize. There's moms that pinch. Manipulation. There's a lot of moms that manipulate their adult children against one another. Does that seem loving? Does that seem kind? Not if you're one of the kids being manipulated. It's extraordinarily painful. So, but then you have those kids that are being mistreated and heavily manipulated and subjected to what is out emotional torture. And those kids will say, well, but my mom loves me and I need to do this just because it's family and it's the right thing to do. When you hear these adult children describing these people that are really supposed to be trusted people, but really it's trusted position, they're tortured. It's psychological warfare that's being waged on these adult children that can convince themselves, no, I'm not being tortured. I'm experiencing torture. I'm in misery, but it's not really torture because it's my mom that's doing it. And moms are supposed to love their kids. And so I'm going to overlook this terrible behavior. I'm going to be kind and compassionate towards my abusive bitch of a mother because I want to be caring, and I think she's just confused, and I think she really does love me, even though I don't have a memory in my mind of her being nice to me ever. But that's okay. I'll still just stick around for the abuse. And they'll convince themselves through empathy and compassion, how would I feel? How would I feel if my child quit talking to me? Well, I would be devastated. But you're being a loving, authentic, kind mother to your children. So if you're being a loving, authentic, kind mother to your kids, why would your child quit talking to you? Right? But people that are being abused, emotionally manipulated by their mothers or fathers or whatever, the compassion, the empathy kicks in, and they think about themselves rather the reality of what the parent is doing to them, and they stick around for years of abuse. Years. I'm talking years of real psychological warfare. Terrible tactics. Terrible. Well, if a kid, a biological child of parents, if that person can convince themselves as as a mother is actually committing psychological warfare against her children. If if a child can find compassion for that abuser, then why wouldn't an extremely compassionate wife of a husband find empathy and compassion? When he's not using meth, if he's sober and sane and loving and kind to her when he's sober, don't you think it's very easy to write off the abusive episodes if you convince yourself it's only because of the methamphetamine that he's doing this to you? Right? Well, the real Tyler doesn't beat me. The real Tyler doesn't do this. It's only when he gets on that chemical. And I've just got to convince him to stay off of the methamphetamine. You see what I mean? People convince themselves, sometimes for 60 years, that this isn't really abusive. Or you make excuses for the abuse, right? You make excuses for it. Oh, maybe it's a little dementia. No, because dementia didn't happen when you were 13. People make excuses for the abusers in their lives. It's hard. It's so hard to acknowledge I am the victim of someone that is supposed to love and protect me. So for Nikki, I think she loved Tyler. 13 years in a marriage is a long time. And if he had only recently begun to dabble with the methamphetamine, maybe she was grappling with, okay, what am I going to do about this violence? This is not what he's like when he's not using it. But this isn't domestic violence. What this woman experienced was not domestic violence. I hate that word because it minimizes what the experience is. I mean, let me ask you this, just in truth. What would you rather experience? Would you rather, if you've just got to be beaten within an inch of your life, would you rather it to be done by a trusted person in your life, like your husband or your mom or your dad? Or would you rather it be some stranger that came out of the shadows? Which would be easier to heal from? 100%, it's easier to heal from stranger assault. Because when it is a trusted person, when it's someone that you love, your empathy and your compassion gets all mixed up into it and you get so confused, you just feel like you're going crazy. You're being abused by this person who is supposed to love you and even proclaims to love you, and yet they're using tactics against you of violence, psychological warfare, manipulation. And it's so hard to find healing. It's so hard to find peace when your abuser, your tormentor, is someone that you love and they don't love you back. It's terrible. It's a terrible experience. All right. I see some people commenting. This thing that I've described about being assaulted either physically or being subjected to a nightmare of emotional manipulation. You cannot fully appreciate what it is like to have someone who is supposed to love you demean you, degrade you, ostracize you, lie about you, minimize you. You don't fully appreciate the devastation because of the psychological breakdown that it creates. You can't possibly understand how terrible it is. It is not easy for a person to walk away from someone they love who is abusing them. It's hard. It's really hard. And the only thing that will make a person do that is self-preservation. A recognition, I can't take this anymore. It's going to kill me if I have to put up with this anymore. And I'm willing to give up $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 just to find peace. That's hard. But if you are someone like Nikki and you've loved this man and he's been kind to you and you've had a great marriage, you've had 4 children, things have been going fine until he starts using drugs. And when he starts using this particular drug, your life gets turned into a hell house. The excuses that you can make for yourself to stay, the excuses that you can make for yourself to say, all we got to do is keep him off the meth. If we can keep him off the meth, he won't beat me anymore. We just got to keep him off the meth. So being extremely compassionate, that phrase jumped out at me. It speaks volumes what was going on in that house. Tyler Scott McCain is a troubled soul. He probably has failure in his history. He probably was never able to find a way to really work and make any money. He was protected by his mommy. His mom said, it's okay, Scotty Bob. It's okay. Tyler Scott, you're okay. Poor baby. The world just wouldn't give you a chance. Poor baby. So he's already walking around with an enormous chip on his shoulder. He doesn't see himself as an equal of other adults. Well, if they can hold down a full-time job, surely I can. If other people can do it, surely I can. Those thoughts never went through someone like Tyler Scott's mind. Just, I'm a victim. Poor old Tyler Scott. I'm the victim of life. All of his messes getting cleaned up by his mommy. And then he discovers meth. And that's the beginning of the end. He discovers methamphetamine and he becomes external expression of the hell going on inside of him. And Nikki loved him and was extremely compassionate. In the end, on December, I can't even remember the date of the beating now. The statement was taken on December the 1st, so it must have been the end of November. In the end, her instincts kicked in. In the end, she had the realization, it doesn't matter if he's on meth or not, this man is going to kill me if I don't get away from him. And she did try in the end. She did recognize he was not the person that she thought he was, that he was not this kind, wonderful guy just on meth, that he was externalizing being kind. He was externalizing being normal, but really all the meth did was unlock the monster that was already living inside of him, the monster that was created by a mother who kept telling him he was just a victim and that that's okay, that the world just won't give him a fair shake. Nikki realized this is the real one. This is who he truly is. And she made her getaway. She did not go back with him. She did not go back to him after the statement was taken on December the 1st. She recognized he's not going to quit using the meth. And even if he does, the monster has been released. He's going to continue to do this to me and my kids. And so in the end, District Attorney Bridget, in the end, you are responsible for this woman. Charge the man with murder or attempted murder. I don't give a damn at this point, but charge him. You have the evidence to make an attempted murder charge stick. The fact that this insane man is walking around free ought to make your blood run cold. It's terrible. Hey, sweetie pie. These cases break my heart after watching my mom be abused in every way, but I broke the cycle. Both of my sons know I raised them. They know never touch a woman. Thank you, sweetie pie. Absolutely. Break the cycle. That's what it's all about. Break the cycle, break the cycle, break the cycle. That's what you got to do, right? To any of these abusive people. Not just physically abusing little boy men. Tyler's a little boy man. He's a child living in an adult man's body, and he uses methamphetamine, and he has a temper tantrum. He had a temper tantrum. Unfortunately, it killed this woman. It's just my heart is broken for her family. My heart is broken for her children. This never should have happened. He should have been brought to trial as fast as possible and sitting his ass in jail. Not given time to go back and finish what he started in December of 2023. What's the deal with funerals? At my grandfather's funeral, mother acted like I was a stranger. She made me feel like I had no business being there. At no other funeral did she ostracize me. You know what? Crazy mothers. Don't try to understand Martian Planet. Don't, because you will drive yourself crazy. The reality is there are unhealthy people, and unhealthy people have children too. That's just the truth. And for me, let me say it this way. For me, my mama was the best mom I ever had. My dad's mother was the best mother I ever had. I was so close to my mama and papa, my dad, that they are responsible for who I am today. Give up trying to understand crazy mothers. They, in some ways, I don't even think they know why they do what they do, Martian Planet. I don't think they know why they do what they do. So don't ask yourself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't give you any peace to know why your mom did what she did at that funeral. There's no peace to be found. Find some acceptance that this is what she is. This is how she is. And that does not stop you from going out into the world and building a life that brings you joy. In the end, our parents do not give us joy. In the end, our parents cannot give us happiness. That's our responsibility to figure out. For me, man, I love virtual reality games, right? I have an Oculus. Well, I got several Oculus. I love it. So if I'm having a bad day, if I'm feeling down or whatever, I know that sitting down and playing my Oculus for a couple of hours I feel so good. It's an escape. It's a great, enjoyable cognitive experience. You know, it's a good feeling. I know that going for a walk feels good. I know that listening to my music too loud feels good. I know getting in my car, put the top down and going for a ride feels good. So there does have to be resolution. You do have to find a way to get to that point of acceptance. And in acceptance, there's no judgment of good or bad. It's just a description of the facts. Finding the truth, finding the facts, and then sitting at peace with it. And then get busy seeking out your joy. Maybe your joy is cooking a good meal. Some people love to cook, but you may not know if you don't ever try. So going on a quest to find the things in your life that give you peace, give you a sense of joy, find what they are and then do it. And don't blame that crazy mother. She's the one that had to live with herself and be in misery. Tyler's the one, he may be walking free right now, but he knows that the other shoe's about to drop. He knows that the whole world believes that he killed Nikki. And he also knows her statement to the sheriff's office is out there. Everybody knows what he did to this woman. And that's what matters. All right. Mother did the same thing to her sister at a class reunion. My aunt called, I answered, and she was torn up over the same exact description of my experience at their dad's funeral. Yeah. We one day we'll do a live about narcissistic moms. I'm talking about true narcissistic personality disorder. How they act out onto their daughters or their sisters, the other females, their nieces, other females in the family very often get the focus of the aggression. So we'll talk about that one day, Martian Planet. All right, people, I got to go. Yes, Pam, jealous mothers that are jealous of their daughters. Sometimes the jealousy is the, youth being angry that now the daughter is beautiful and, young and the mom's looks are fading. That can be a real catalyst for abuse that may not have ever really happened earlier in the relationship. I know that in my situation, it was education, it was intellect, it was being able to pursue my dreams and have a real career. My mom was furious at me for that, minimized what I accomplished. So people have a lot of reasons to be jealous, but it doesn't mean that you have to live with that forever. Naming it, giving it factual description, and finding peace and acceptance. This is just how it is. This is the mom I have, period. And yes, most moms are supportive. Most moms are empathetic and loving. Mine wasn't. So what? I don't care at this point because I'm an adult and I'm responsible for my own health and my own peace, right? Take control of finding your peace, finding your joy. And for me, it's something as small as being able to sit down and play my Oculus or coming live on YouTube and discussing these different things with people that have the same interest I do. Taking a walk, taking a hot bath. But if you don't become aware of the things that bring you peace, then how can you experience it? Don't hold your mom responsible for bringing you peace. Because some of our moms, they just don't have it in them. You know what I mean? All right. You're wonderful, Martian Planet Art. You are. And Pam, you guys are great. Don't ever forget it. All right. Just be you. You're awesome. You're everything you should be. All right. All right. I will be back again and we will talk more about this district attorney. Y'all have a good day.